Parallelism with the Malay world. Dr. Nasha is the senior lecturer and archaeologist from the Center for Global Archaeological Research, Universiti Sains, Malaysia. He is the only archaeologist in this region who is able to use scientific methods to analyze and understand Sanskrit inscriptions. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Nasha Roziadi Kaur.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Center for Global Archaeological Research, University Sains of Malaysia, I would like to express my thanks to the organizer of this conference for inviting me here. And I hope that my presentation can be able to somehow contribute to the greater body of knowledge regarding the study on the indigenous social values of the region. So, study on the social values has been quite an interesting topic for the field of archaeology as well as anthropological and ethnographical research. Yeah? And the social values can be observed in the forms of art, technology, social hierarchy, economic subsistence, as well as the artistic forms prevalent in the kampung societies which exist today. However, how do we actually explain the social values of societies which no longer exist? Societies which passed from existence hundreds of years ago. So, that is when we, the archaeologists, come to the picture. So the job of an archaeologist is to reconstruct ancient societies, to reconstruct ancient cultures based on their material remains as well as tangible evidences. Their material remains contain of artifacts, monuments, biofacts, as well as cultural landscapes. And although archaeological field can be divided into lots of sub-disciplines, my field is the field of epigraphy, which is the study of ancient scripts in terms of their evolution as well as decipherment. This field enables us to get specific insights into the cultural, religion, political, as well as the socio-economic setup of the society. This is because inscriptions constitute an unalterable written records which are contemporary to the events in an ancient societies. So, among many informations that we can retrieve from the study of epigraphy is the form of social values of the society, which I am going to discuss today. So, one of the interesting civilization which has its own social values is the region of Gandhara. So the Gandhara civilization is a cultural, political, as well as a religious and artistic entity which exists in the area of northwest Pakistan and eastern Afghanistan. Okay, so it was being mentioned variously in the Greek, Indian, Roman, and Chinese records. This Gandhara civilization exists between 1800 BC until the 11th century CE. So that is the location of the Gandhara civilization. Yeah? And we can see in the Gandhara civilization there are lots of artifacts there. The area of Gandhara kingdom is being confined in the Peshawar Valley. However, the areas which were being influenced by the Gandharan culture extend from Afghanistan until India. And among the historical records that mention about the Gandhara civilization include the Indian sources, which are the Rig Veda, Atharva Veda, the Ramayana, the Jatakas, and the Raja Tarangini. So, the history of the Gandhara civilization was also being mentioned by the Greco-Roman sources, the Chinese sources, as well as the Arab sources. One of the important Arab sources that which mentioned about Gandhara was the writings of Al-Biruni. And throughout the centuries, the Gandhara civilization was continually being conquered and being influenced by foreign civilizations. Being located between the Chinese civilizations, the Central Asia, India and Iran, Gandhara civilization became the melting pot for different cultures to mix and to form a distinctive form of culture and art. So we can see that the Gandhara civilization was going through various historical chronologies, starting from the prehistoric period, the Vedic and Achaemenid period, the Greek period, the Indo-Scythian period, the Parthian period, the Kushan period, the Kushano-Sasanian period, the invasion of the Huns and Kingals, the Turk Shahi period, and finally the Hindu Shahi period. And after the 11th century, the invasion of the Muslims, which ravaged the whole kingdom, brought an end to the Gandharan civilization. And in Gandhara, we have lots of discoveries, archaeological discoveries, and the discoveries include sculptures, monuments, beads, which give a very distinctive form which defines the culture of the Gandhara. But one of the most important discovery in Gandhara are inscriptions. Hundreds of inscriptions were discovered in the region. And in my PhD research, I studied 73 inscriptions which were written in the Brahmi and Sharada inscriptions, which were dated from the 4th to the 10th century CE, mostly. Yeah? And for these inscriptions, they were being issued by a number of people, mostly by the ruling, by the ruling powers as well as the private individuals. And the result of my research shows that almost all of these inscriptions record some sort of donations and constructions of buildings for the well-being of the society. Almost 100% of the inscriptions record these kind of things, and most of them were being issued by private individuals. Yeah. Okay, I am not going to show all of the inscriptions because most of this has not been published, but I'm just going to show you the most important ones. Yeah. Okay, this is the process for me of doing the research there. So most of the inscriptions were being collected from the reserve collections of the Lahore Museum as well as the Peshawar Museum. Yeah. So these are the stones before they were being cleaned and deciphered. Okay. So in this research, 73 inscriptions were being documented, and they were discovered in various institutions as well as in private collections. And the inscriptions were being collected from the Peshawar Museum, the Lahore Museum, the Chakdara Museum, and etc. And the first donative inscription is the Sri Bhaganasha inscription. It was discovered in northern Pakistan, and it records about the donation of coins and mats for a religious establishment. One more is the Mir Ali inscription. It was found in South Waziristan of the tribal area. It is written in Sanskrit language and dated from the 10th century CE. This inscription records the construction of a well for the well-being of the people. This is the translation done by me. Yeah. Now, we have the Wano inscription discovered in North Waziristan of the federally administered tribal area. And this inscription records the construction of a temple. Okay, this is the translation. Next one is the Dal Mahat inscription. This inscription records the construction of a water tank, which was mentioned as Vapi. Vapi means water tank. Yeah. Another inscription, the Dewan inscription. This inscription records the construction of a well for the well-being of the people. Okay, this is the translation. Next one is the Ratna Manjari inscription. This one was being recorded, was used to record the construction of a Hindu temple. And the Veka inscription, another inscription which records some charitable values. So, also the construction of a Hindu temple. This is the Zalam Kot bilingual inscription. So, the special thing about this inscription is that it is written in two languages, Persian and Sanskrit. And these Sanskrit inscriptions were used to record the construction of a resting place by a Muslim governor. So the name of a Muslim governor were being written in the Sanskrit language. So the name of the governor is actually Arsalan, and in Sanskrit it was being transcribed as Sri Asalanasa, you know, and it was mentioned as the governor of Tus, and it says the Amir of Tus, and the name Amir of Tus was being Sanskritized to the form of Sri Amira Tosa. So you see how the cultural interaction, how the cultural, how do we say, acculturation of Sanskrit and Arabic were being done in the 11th century CE. Persian, yes, but it is, how do we say, the Arabized form of Persian. And during this time, in the 11th century CE, the Muslims were coming from the west to conquer the Indians, the Hindus at that time, and they seemed to adapt with the Sanskrit language. Yeah? And this is the Sita Mahakandra inscription, which records a donation for a religious establishment. And this is the Kamandalu inscription, again, to record a donation. Another donative inscription, and one more. And this is the Vasudeva Narayana inscription, which record the donation of an image for a religious establishment. One more. To record the construction of a tank. Another donative inscription. And the list of the inscription is endless. During my documentation, I have recorded 250 inscriptions coming from the region of Gandhara, of which only 73 was being placed inside my thesis. And all of them were used to record donations. It is some sort of charitable works for the society. So this is my analysis, and most of these inscriptions were not issued by the government, were not issued by the ruling houses, but were issued by private individuals. Okay. Okay, so these are the statistics and the subject matter. Although the subject matter can be divided into many parts, but all of them were used for charitable works. So among them are the construction of buildings. The buildings are divided into two parts, either religious building or secular buildings. The religious buildings consist of monasteries and temples, while the secular ones are resting places. No? Okay, inscription recording donations. The forms of donations are different. Some people, they contributed money to the religious establishment. Some donated clothes, domestic utensils for the usage of monasteries. And we have inscription recording the digging of wells and tanks. Most of the digging of wells and tanks are used for the religious establishment as well as for the society, for the common kampung people. And we have inscriptions which record land grants and purchase of lands, and inscription recording the establishment of images, as well as those which are known subject matter due to the condition of the inscription. Okay. These inscriptions can be mostly dated from the 4th to the 10th century CE. During the same period in the Malay archipelago, we see the rise and fall of lots of telesocratical empire. When I say telesocratical, means empires which subsistence was confined to the activity of trade and manipulation of the maritime resources. From the 2nd to the 6th century CE, we saw the rise of the Funan Empire, which was being centered in Indochina. And during this period, the Funan Empire extended its dominion from the southern part of the Indo-Chinese Peninsula until the whole of Malay Peninsula. During the same period, we saw the rise of the Taruma Kingdom in Western Java, as well as the Kingdom of Kutai in Eastern Kalimantan. And then, between the 7th to the 13th century CE, we saw the rise of the Srivijayan Empire, which conquered most part of the coastal settlements of the Strait of Malacca, as well as the South China Sea. Okay, during this period, this empire was being centered in the Palembang area, and was probably dominated by the Austronesian speakers. No? And then, during the same period, from the 7th to 10th century CE, we saw the rise of the Shailendra Empire, contemporary with the Srivijayan Empire, but was being confined to central and eastern Java as well as southern Kalimantan. And then after the 14th century CE to the 15th century CE, we saw the rise of the Majapahit Empire, which conquered most part of the Malay archipelago. During the same period, from the 4th to the 10th, prior to the rise of Majapahit, quite a number of inscriptions recording the charitable values was discovered in the Malay archipelago. Although they are smaller in number, but the inscriptions are by no means absent. Yeah? And however, the difference between the inscriptions found in the Malay archipelago to those which were found in Gandhara is that the inscriptions in the Malay archipelago are mostly political in nature. They were used as an edict by the rulers to confirm their power in their society. However, inscription recording donations are also available, although they are smaller in number. Okay, the first and earliest inscriptions which records donation in the Malay archipelago is the Kutai inscription. The Kutai inscription was found in eastern Kalimantan region and can be dated from the 4th to the 5th century CE, which is contemporary to the Gandhara, to the rise of the Gandhara civilization. Okay, this inscription was issued by King Mulavarman, the king of Kutai Matadipura, and it mentioned about the sacrifice ceremony of the Vedic Brahmana religion. And during this ceremony, some gift were being given to the Brahmins which carried out the process. So the gift include water, ghee, cow, sesame seeds, etc. So King Mulavarman made this gift to the Brahman in order to receive religious merit from it. Okay, this is dated from the 4th to the 5th century CE. Okay, it was in Kalimantan, eastern Kalimantan. Okay, and then we go to the 6th century CE, during the rise of the Taruma Nagara Kingdom. The Taruma Nagara Kingdom developed in Western Java, in the present-day Banten area, in the Banten province. And this inscription was issued by the king of Taruma, known as Purnavarman. Okay, the king of Taruma Nagara produced lots of inscriptions, but this is the only inscription which records some sort of social work for the people. So this inscription records the digging of a river canal, 2 of them, throughout the capital into the river. So the purpose of this canal was probably for transportation or agricultural purposes, but obviously it was done for the benefit of the civilians. Okay, this inscription is dated somewhere between 6th to the 7th century CE. Okay, and this is the only one which records some sort of charitable work. And again, it was being issued by the king, just like the Kutai inscription, also recorded by the king. Okay, then we go to the 7th century CE. We saw the rise of the Srivijaya kingdom. And now we have this Talang Tua inscription discovered in Sumatra. This Talang Tua inscription is one of dozens of inscriptions which can be dated during the Srivijayan Empire, and it was being issued by King Dapunta Hyang Srijayanasa. This inscription is extremely special also because it records the the establishment of fruit orchards and gardens in the capital of Srivijaya, and you can read the translation of this inscription. It mentioned that fruit trees were being planted in that garden for the benefit of everyone. And cows are being reared inside the garden so that everyone can take advantage from it, can take benefit from it. And it's not only for the people, but it is also for the slaves. And inside this inscription, there are lots of prayers and incantations so that the people will have a very good life, will have a happy life. So it is all mentioned inside here. Okay, this is the Srivijaya inscription, and again, it was being issued by the king of Srivijaya, not by anyone else, but by the king. No, it is not in Palembang. It is in southern part of Sumatra, further south. Now, next one, and we go to the 8th century CE. Okay, this is the copper plate coming from Java, and it was being issued by the king of Mataram, the Hindu Mataram period. And this inscription records the establishment of an agrahara. Agrahara means a land endowment which is used for religious purposes. So the king is going to buy a land and he's going to donate the land to the temple. So all the products or commodities or income coming from the land is going to be contributed to the temple and the surrounding villages. And during the ceremony, few things are going to be donated by the state to the people, usually in the form of money and in the form of clothes or other domestic utensils. So you can see, some people are receiving clothes and silvers, and the names were being specified inside this inscription. Okay? Now, that's about it. So those are the kind of epigraphic discovery that we found in the Malay archipelago. So what is the difference between the inscriptions which was being discovered in Gandhara and those which was discovered in the Malay archipelago? Okay, I will start with the similarities first. One similarity is in the object of donations. They are pretty much the same. First of all, usually the inscriptions, they mention the construction of some sort of buildings, mostly religious buildings or some sort of edifice which can be used for the people, such as resting places, etc. And secondly, the things that were donated are in the form of money, clothes, or domestic utensils like pots, pans, and knives, for domestic users. And then the recipients of the donations usually are the religious establishments or the local people, the local kampung folks. Now, the biggest difference between the inscriptions found in Gandhara and those of the Malay world is that in Gandhara, the donations were being made by private individuals. Only by the private individual. They consist of traders or just some lay people who have the means to donate. But in the Malay world, donations in the form of material things, clothes, money, buildings, were only being done by the rulers. We have not found a single inscription mentioning about donation which were being made by private individuals. And why? So this has something to do with the socio-political and socio-economic setup of the Malay archipelago. So this period between the 4th to the 11th century CE in Gandhara, the political system there was not very strong. From the 4th to the 5th century CE, we saw the rise of the principalities of Han and Khingals, the rise of the Turk Shahi kingdoms and the rise of the Hindu Shahi kingdoms. In those periods, the form of government was not very strong, and the government were not being able to control the means of production in the country. The political system were a bit fragmented, and most of the private individuals have full control over their lands and their properties. That gives an advantage to the local people so that they can be able to control their money. So they were able to use their money for the benefit of the people. Unlike in the Malay archipelago, the form of state here was having a very rigid control towards the land and property, and only the rulers were having the power to control the lands. So the rulers were in the position to give off the donation for the people. So this does not mean that the local people were not able to contribute something to the society. According to our study on these epigraphic discoveries, it shows that the local people were being able to contribute in form of their free labor. So in the process of donations, in the ceremonies, the local people, they contributed their labor for free to the state, which in the process of donation, which were being funded and supervised by the state. And this free labor, in my opinion, were the precursors or were the was the origin for the concept of gotong royong that we have today. So it is due to the political setup of the Malay archipelago that only the rulers have power to control the means of production, and as for the people, they can be able to contribute by using their own strength, by using their own labor. And as time goes by, so we have the concept of free labor which is being given to the society in the form of gotong royong. So that's it, I think, for now.
would like to thank you for bringing historical linguistics and archaeology and epigraphy into the conference. Epigraphy and the decipherment of ancient scripts played a very important role in my self-development, because the decipherment of linear B, you may be familiar with, right, from Crete and the kingdom of Knossos, is what switched me from electrical engineering to historical linguistics and sociolinguistics and so on. I have a linguistic technical question. You mentioned that the texts of the Gandhara inscriptions were in Sanskrit.
Yeah.
Are they in Sanskrit or Prakrit or Pali?
Okay, this is a bit complicated. The inscription found in Gandhara, it is not Sanskrit per se. We call it the hybrid Sanskrit.
Ah, okay.
It is a mixture between Sanskrit and Prakrit.
Yeah.
And the grammar is just miserable. I mean, yeah, seriously.
Bad teachers.
Yeah. Because those who are being specializing in literary Sanskrit won't be able to decipher this inscription. Yeah. It is just, the comparison is just like Bahasa Melayu Kelantan and Bahasa Melayu Baku. You know, it is, we call it the hybrid Sanskrit.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Firstly, may I compliment your presentation? I'm very impressed with the way you presented your talk.
Thank you.
And the evidence that you put forward. Secondly, my perception of archaeologists is somebody like my Greek professor there and Professor Hood. They are usually elderly people, see, with beards. But you are so young. At first I thought you just graduated from high school. It's impressive. My compliments to you. Well done. Now, firstly, I would like to ask whether in your first description in Lahore, in that area, what are the range of evidences, instead of just writing, but other artifacts that you discover? Secondly, in the other empire in Southeast Asia, you mentioned about labor. You commented that there were people who gave their time for free. Did you find that was the case, or was it, were there slaves, or were there people that were conquered? Were they just ordinary people? Thank you.
For discoveries of Gandhara region, I mean, aside from inscription, we have like hundreds and thousands of other discoveries. There were so many discoveries, we are having problem to classify them. However, they can be broadly classified into 4 categories. Firstly are sculptures and relief panels. So those are carvings. Secondly are monuments, which consists of stupas, viharas, and temples. Thirdly are ceramics. Ceramics are, you know, pots and pans and rest. And fourthly are miscellaneous. So those are the other objects which does not fit into the first 3. So these discoveries give us impression regarding the art, the social structure, and the economic subsistence of Gandhara. So, but the most important thing is the inscriptions, because, you know, for the other discoveries, they are open for interpretations. You know, when you get a stone, then lots of people can give interpretation about it. While in inscriptions, then those are being clearly mentioned and stated in a sentence there. So there is no, it's not open for so much interpretations. And regarding the labor in Southeast Asia, I wouldn't call them slaves, but they are more or less like population which are being controlled by under one chieftain, and the chieftain were having some sort of moral power to rally the labor. So they were kind of doing it willingly under these chieftains, and the political organization of the Malay world is a bit different from those that we know in Europe or in the Indo-Pakistan subcontinent, where the main king did not directly control all the populations, but they were controlling the chieftains or ketua kampungs, which in turn can be able to rally their labor based on their own moral power over the people. It was not a power, it is not a matter of coercion anyway. It is about the moral prestige that were being held by the chieftains.
Thank you, Dr. Nasha, and bravo. Bravo, it's a virtuoso presentation, really very impressive, thank you. I'd just like to say how nice it is to hear a cogent, evidence-based presentation of early Malay history. In almost 20 years that I've been coming and working in Malaysia, I've been looking for that kind of history, and I keep hearing that it starts with the Malacca Sultanate, and until I started reading in the media about discoveries at the Bujang Valley, I believed that was the case, and I really hope that the extremely scholarly work that you've been doing and that you are doing and that you're in charge of now, I believe, as being responsible for Bujang Valley research, will result in curricula so that all Malaysians get to see what their antecedents are and that they are heirs to very advanced classical civilizations that they should be very proud of and claim as part of their identity, just as the Javanese do to this day. I have a specific question, and that is about the Tugu inscription and the building of the canal.
Yes.
There are 2 points. One is that, where you're presenting it as a charitable contribution by the ruler, but actually a canal could go straight up to the palace, which may be not so charitable, but just convenient for the ruler, so he doesn't have to have his palanquin carried through smelly markets. And it could also facilitate trade, so it may be more of a civic work than a donation as such. And the second thing is that I wonder the difference between Gandhara and the Malay polity of the region, really, which, as you pointed out, is Borneo, it's Java, it's Sumatra, it's the Malay Peninsula, going right up potentially into Myanmar and southern Thailand and so on. The difference between them in terms of recording charitable works from the public versus charitable contributions by the rulers may not mean that ordinary people didn't, and wealthy citizens didn't make contributions. It may be that perhaps parallel to some similar situations that the rulers controlled the media. And it may simply be that the rulers weren't going to record anything that outshone them. So that if you happen to be a rich merchant and you endowed a temple or a canal or something, you might do it in the name of the ruler to stay sweet with the ruler. Or you might not have it recorded because it might be seen that you could rise as a threat to the ruler.
Yes, it might piss the ruler, huh?
Yeah, basically the point is that the ruler may have controlled the media.
Yes, actually I'm still doing research about the concept of individual or private records. That is going to be published for my thesis, actually. My thesis is going to be published as a book, and I'm going to elaborate further on this matter.
I have a very short request. Did you find any word like wakaf, zakat, kafara?
No, because my special, I focus on Sanskrit inscriptions.
Only Sanskrit, not Arabic.
No.
Thank you.
One naive question from an old man who is not an archaeologist. How do you describe from all that you have read this concept of a balance Mizan during that particular period? Or is there any word that you picked up that is inclined to this whole idea of balance and Mizan in Sanskrit or hybrid Sanskrit words?
There is no specific word which which is being mentioned inside the discussion. So the thing that I get now is from the overall conclusion which I get from the discussion, because we know that the inscriptions, just like Dr. Gerard said just now, it is a propaganda. It is written in order to uplift the ego of the ruler. However, we can only be able to retrieve indirect information from the inscription. It takes a long time to interpret them. So from all this interpretation, I can just be able to make a learned guess from the content about how do they relate to the concept of this sustainability and the harmony between the society and its environment. So it is pretty much an overall conclusion from all the inscriptions, but there's no specific word from the inscriptions.
I had a quick question. I very much enjoyed the presentation. The Srivijaya ruler built a garden in the city there, southwest Sumatra. Yeah. So Mike, what I would like to know, that, I think you already answered this just now actually. This is in your dissertation, yes?
Yeah.
Is this available online, your dissertation?
Okay, on the Gandharan civilization, then the thesis, I think it is already online. It is in the Higher Education Commission website for Pakistan.
I mean about the Srivijaya.
Oh, about the Srivijaya, no, this is not part of my thesis.
It's not published?
It is not published, but the inscription itself has been published a long time ago in 1992.
I'd like to get that reference from you, maybe after.
Yes, I just have to give you my email and I will send you the article.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nasha Robziadi Kau. Our next presenter is Professor Wan Mokhtar Wan Yusof. Professor Wan Mokhtar has specialized in fermentation technology, industrial biotechnology, and design of wastewater treatment plant. I'm honored to invite Professor Wan Mokhtar to present his paper entitled Lost and Found, the Sripadi Agroecology of Southeast Asia. Professor Wan Mokhtar, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Where do I go from here? Escape. Where's my... Thank you. That's by way of introduction, Fabridoni, who is my master's student, completed, and now PhD student. His name is there. Okay. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. I am very glad to be here, and I hope I can contribute something, inshallah. The Kampung. This is, I suppose, the key word in all this, and the Mizan, another key word. I have to connect these two with the lost and found within a subspace that I study, the SRI Paddy Agroecology of Southeast Asia. Now, how would I do this? Really, I want to focus on the man in all of this. And in the man, you will find a bit of the man, which is called the heart. And in that heart lies your lost and found. It can be your kampung that is so much embedded in your hopes and fears. That is your inwards. And to transport that outwards. So this inwards and outwards dynamics of being the man, trying to externalize the kampung is a major part of this proposition. Lost and found, I have lost lots of time this weekend with my grandchildren, but I have found lots of friends, really important friends, that have given me lots of ideas. And I thank you all, and I thank you, Tan Sri and Prof. Emeritus, good friend. Let me now focus on this lost and found. It is really in our hearts, as how we perceived and longed for. Outside our heart is how we are able to externalize, to say, to share with people that we love, and to share with people that we have not met, that what we long for, that kampung in our hearts, to be with them. They come from Iraq, Kurdistan area, from Barangay in the Philippines, mashallah. They are part of the whole microcosm, if you like, of the cosmology of the lost and found. In this world, as how we are able to write about it, people will read our thesis and what we say, and hopefully what comes out from here becomes something that will move our country forward. What we long and we pain for, not achieved, not done by our political masters, or by ourselves, or by what we fear that we do not do before the time comes, before the hour comes. This responsibility is very heavy, because in the end, we ask ourselves, what are we able to garner that can be transported, accounted for, when the day of judgment comes? Can be today or tomorrow. And the day you will never know. As to what we have understood by the creator of the word, Al-Mizan. Let's go forward. Rice. Everybody eats them, whether it is polished or not polished. We produce, at the moment, non-polished rice. You can buy it from me if you like. These are in our hearts of the people of Southeast Asia. And I want to share with you a beautiful picture that came out from our hearts that have been externalized at this three lovely Kedah, a 10 hectares farming land that has conducted agroecological farming technique since 2011. Picture taken by February. He's the man here. If you go to any place in Southeast Asia and if you see this, please make dua for them, that they will be able to sustain it. It is so difficult to sustain this because we are going uphill. The government machinery is not supporting us, but that's not a problem. In your area, Doctor, the Philippines government did not micromanage that area and allows the governor to do what is best for his people. I am jealous. Really I am, because I cannot do it here. You are 10, 20 times fold better than me in your effort. This is another expression of our kampung idyllic, if you like, or kampung situation where a man who has a small plot of land, a paddy land, has agreed to try our technique of agroecology. His land was inundated with NPK, inundated with poisons to the land that kills not even the birds and the bees, the fishes and the microbes, the effective microbes that are there, which have been externalized by our friend in Philippines. Alhamdulillah, I am very, very jealous again to see that. But we have managed to get this man called Tuanku. He is in Kelantan, who has been able to show to his people, and he's the only one with his wife every day trying to do that. And he was jeered, and he was labeled a sick man. And the one who told them was even sicker. That was me. And that is how we have to go forward. That is me, trying to be a farmer, unsuccessfully. But in the traditional farming, eco-friendly equipment was used to separate the grains from panicles, thus maintaining viability of a small-scale farming system that sustained the family-owned basic unit. The world over, if you believe me, is sustained by this family-owned basic unit, not the big mega-scale multinational companies that not only destroy your hearts and your desires of the kampung life that is in you, it also destroys what you stand for. This is what we have. Currently, whether you like it or not, it is an industrial agriculture led to the destruction of small farming systems. Not to mention names, just put out the names. You will recognize them. Chemical industrial agriculture, big farms, not owned by locals, even taken over from locals. High synthetic imported chemical inputs that put so much heavy burden on your currency, on your fiat money, managed by foreign interests. Chemical industrial agriculture, I hasten to put CHEM because I fear if I put CIA, I will not be very happy with myself for the use of the wrong words. We have to use the right word. Has not resulted in equitable local ownership. Food free of residual chemicals. As we speak and you eat, you will know. No guarantee of food supply for locals. Our farmers who have been planting rice for the past 35 years did not eat their own rice that they plant. You have to believe me. Because it is the truth. What else can I say? Lots of government subsidies are required to do this. Debt-based economy and given away to GMOs. I am very sorry for being so anti-biotech, but I made no mistakes. I make no apologies. This is the undernourishment and the chemical industrial agriculture. Is there a correlation? It is very clear. All those areas colored shows the evidence. We need a new approach. And this approach must come from this kampung in you, these ideals, this Mizan, Al-Mizan. It is a place for you to know had, to know the limits of your existence, whether you like it or not. Why and what is SRI? Without going further, SRI is systems root intensification, sustainable resources intensification. But the one that I like most is in the Arabic parlance, which is S for sabr, R for rida, and I for istiqamah. Allow me to say a bit of S. Sabr is the ability for you to sustain your anger at the point of incursion and interruptions. It is a really beautiful ability of a man that is inside you to make it outward, these beautiful attributes of sabr. And if you feel that, then you can see when you reach the height of sabr, you will have rida for R. And at that time, are you going to claim whatever you have done upstream or downstream is because of your ability? No. Please do not fall into that prey. You just say, Shukran Lillah. Another Arabic term which I have got for 5 minutes to say all this. Istiqamah is the way forward with all these things. 5 minutes, I will just have to rush through. Yeah, these are the SRI hexagon. We start with 5 to 7 day old seedling. I was in Padang 2 weeks ago. They start with 30 days old. If you measure productivity with the amount per volume per time, time is at the bottom, and if the number at the bottom is big, your productivity factor is really much decreased by arithmetic calculation. We start with 5 day old. You choose the best that you plant, and you use people around you to empower them, to share with you this kampung that is inwards, that are resurfacing in the operationalization of these SRI approaches. Really, I would like you to share with me this beautiful feeling. If only you know, this comes from 1 5-day-old seedling. 1 5-day-old seedlings, separated by 35 cm space, and doing our SRI technique. You can care to count, it is easily 50 and above from 1. Compared to what you're doing now, you meaning the farmers that are using the modern chemical-based technique, you do not have respect for the seed. We respect them. You just throw the seeds all over the place and hope for them to grow. Inshallah not. This is locally available fermentable materials made into biofertilizers. We empower the people. And that is the smile of the man. He's our student, using the conventional, using the SRI technique. Please savor that smile, because you will not see it again. That is what we have done in Ledang Johor. And the spread is now contagious, but only arrested by people who do not see the meaning of what is Al-Mizan. The adoption and spread in Malaysia is a grand challenge for us. We have gone all over the place, but we are going to Philippines after this and Kurdistan, inshallah. Advocacy is the word. We've got to go to the people, shake their hands, know the names of their wives, know the names of their children. In fact, the first SRI farmer in Kelantan that I personally managed is called Mr. Zikri, and it was because of his wife, not because of him. And his wife believed in me. I was very, very happy that he was not jealous of me. But so February was there to be in between. These are the figures, if you like, 5 times, 3 times, for whatever rice variety. So it is rice variety independent. Really. The rice variety becomes your own. Now the farmers have got to pick up their phone and call for the rice to come forward. The productivity I have mentioned to you. Moving forward, these are lost and found in Ledang Johor. That was me, shaking hands with one farmer on the far right, top. His name is Sulaiman, very, very important man in our Johor expansion plan for SRI. And we're using students to tell them that you have got to start to understand the Mizan that is in you. The young hearts in you must not be violated must not be adulterated by the chemicals that come out. I have got 0 minute now with the man wearing the songkok. You shouldn't wear the songkok like that to me. Thank you very much for telling me the time. So that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, come to me if you want to know more. Really, I have a lot to share. It is not from me. It is really dalam bahasa Melayunya. Ini adalah kearifan alam Melayu yang sudah pun tersimpan dan disorok oleh mereka yang tidak ada jiwa dan raga untuk memahami apa itu Al-Mizan. I am very sorry for those who can understand my language, but even the Malays cannot understand them. Look at that boy. Look at that boy. You cannot have that boy in that situation now in any of the paddy fields. And at the bottom, far right, that is what we are selling now. 15 ringgit per kilo. Very cheap. And more lost and found before I say goodbye. Q&A session now. These are some of the found microbes in the soil that was lost forever. If you continue to do this technique of adulterating your very soil, berbudi kepada tanah, bukan bermakna meladuni tanah itu dengan sampah sarap kimia yang menghancurkan segala yang ada. Percayalah, keadaan ini memberi suatu kekuatan. These are increasing farmers' income that was lost, increasing ecosystem balance that was lost, increasing microbial population that was lost, increasing insect population that was lost, increasing your iman, if you like, that was lost. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And that's my little house that was lost. But I reconstructed. You can see it in my house if you come to the house. Thank you. Sorry. Q&A.
Firstly, again, congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm impressed with your pace of presentation. You were very calm. For a moment, I thought you were a past politician. But
no, I'm not.
I enjoyed that presentation. What I want to comment is that organic farming is on the increase and growing very rapidly in New Zealand. It is a big industry over there, but mainly by smallholders, families who have their plots on the land, and it has become a very established industry. And the future of agriculture, from my thinking, is in organic farming.
Correct.
There's tremendous potential in that area, a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yes.
The thing I want to ask is, in New Zealand, where it is on the increase, the products is being marketed by the farmers, because every week we have a farmers market in every town of New Zealand, basically. In some cases, there are more than one farmers market in a place.
Correct.
Because it's becoming such a popular enterprise. So, and also, I may add that not just in the farmers market, but also in shops, there are like mini supermarkets now selling organic products.
Yes.
So that's very encouraging. Are there any such system that would emerge in this country?
Make dua.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are really moving into that direction. I am now the chairman of a cooperative called UNICAP. We have 4,700 members, and I'm developing cooperative, farmers cooperatives, to model along the same cooperatives that I am now heading. Thank you very much. We will do that.
Can I? We can do a duet.
Fadal, fadal. Fadal.
I have my personal experience with what you mentioned of the farmer who does not consume his own products out of caution because he knows what they cause. I was flying back from the island of Crete, where I was teaching at the University, to Athens, sat next to a farmer with a big bag of oranges.
That's right.
So we started chatting, and he takes out an orange that was, believe me, almost the size of a small watermelon. So I said, my God, you know, what do you feed your orange trees? Christians, you know? And somewhat later, you know, I asked him if he eats his own oranges. And he says, of course not. For my family, I have a different orchard.
That's right.
The extent of cynicism.
Yes.
And where greed can lead normal human farmers, you know.
If you ask the guy who breeds chicken today, as we speak, he will not eat his chicken.
Yes, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Well, I would like just to know what is the difference in cost in your SRI system versus the normal system, and where can we get those rice? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, this is the last question.
Last question. We're supposed to have 10 more. Okay. Cost. Really, it is the cost of going uphill. To tell yourself, have endurance, have patience. We are producing a minimum of 10 tons per hectare. You ask any farmers now using the modern technique, using chemistry, we use biology. At most you can get will be 5 tons per hectare. We harvest at the same time, 120 days. They use lots of money for farm services. They lost a lot of paddy because when the big combined harvester went in, they destroyed the land. Not only that, the paddy seeds fell 35%. Yeah? And they left it to the big government-based burners to take that and then turn it into into rice, white rice, losing all the endosperm and all those beautiful. That alone is costing tremendous amount of money. You know this area, Nusantara, before, we are exporters of rice. It is after this revolution called, so-called Green Revolution, we became importers of rice. What happened? The Green Revolution was not really green. It was a chemical revolution. It's a sad case of destroying this kampung balance that so much becomes the characteristic of societies. Societies that know the balance, that are in contact with the balance. Really, in terms of money, we are nearly 1/3 cheaper. We use less water, 40% less. We use less seeds. Really, that much seed can cover 1 acre. If you use the current system, you need 2 bags. Yeah? We produce the biofertilizer ourselves. We are telling the farmers, you are producing your own biofertilizers. And you can sell them if you like, but we tell them, please don't sell. Help the other farmers so that they can feel this nikmat, this beautiful feeling of expressing that little kampung in you coming out, operationalize, and be part of your contribution to your society. Bi'idhnillah, before you die. That is the legacy that you leave. That is what we have to leave behind. Harimau mati tinggal belang, manusia mati tinggal nama. The tiger, when the time comes for him to die, he will leave behind his stripes, for his stripes denotes his name. That is Dola, that is Akong, that is Akau. How? It is in the pattern of the stripes of the tiger. The man, it is what he has left behind. How many children, how many wives, how many you have contributed? It is your choice. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Professor Wan Mohtar. It's my great pleasure to introduce the next speaker, Dr. Indra Shahrul Mat Razwan. Dr. Indra Shahrul currently lecturing in the Department of Real Estate Management at the University Tun Hussein On Malaysia, UTHM, in Batu Pahat, Johor since 2004. He has written and lectured on issues to do with urban planning. He is a member of the International Council on Monuments and Sites, ICKM Malaysia. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning. Thanks, my greetings to you all, and thanks for coming here today. So today I would like to share part of my PhD thesis entitled Incentive for the Conservation of Heritage Village in Kampung Mizan, Malacca. Are they effective? I'm Indra Shahrul Mat Razwan, currently lecturing at the University Tun Hussein On Malaysia, 2.5 hours away from USIM, down south. Okay. This paper is actually different from previous speaker, which is more focusing on the urban planning or urban conservation aspect. So, before I proceed with the entire presentations, the outline of my presentation would be a background of the case study, which is in Kampung Mizan, and then I would like to touch a little bit more on the traditional settlements, the concept of living heritage, as well as how the incentive program works in the conservation area. And then touch on the program evaluation and the effectiveness, and also methodology and the result and discussion. Okay, as a background, what are the impacts of the heritage village due to urbanization? How does the community survive? What are the limitations of the current incentive policies in meeting the community needs? These are the main empirical questions that this presentation would highlight. Okay, as you may know, maybe some of you come from Malacca state. You may know about the Kampung Mizan, okay? Okay, actually Kampung Mizan is situated in the heart of Malacca city, okay, which is in Malacca, maybe 1.5 hours away from this university, okay, and the Malacca city, as you know, that the city was designated as a World Heritage Site in year 2008, and the population on this kampung is around over 600 residents to this village. Okay. Okay, maybe some of us question about how the Mizan derived. So this village was derived under the British Land Commissioner, which is F.J. Mizan, who contributed to the opening of the village around 1920s. So at the moment, the village was surrounded by many skyscrapers and also roadways. And the Malacca River was the only barrier that protects the tranquility of this village. This is the photos of the bird view of the Mizan village. Okay. with the Malacca River surrounding the village. Okay, it actually consists of 18 typical traditional Malay houses. Okay, and as you can see in the photos, this village still remain its architectural values of the Malay traditional houses. As a typical Malay houses, as you can see, it's raised above ground, okay, with a step roof and tile staircases. Okay, this is the typical Malay houses it can be seen in Malacca. Okay, we move on to the concept of traditional settlements and the living heritage. Okay, as you know, that term traditional settlement is defined as a traditional neighborhood, community, or specific district in the context of historic settlements, where both physical characteristic and its inhabitant carry on with the living traditions, either its skills or cultural practices. Okay, and in this regard, this research takes its stand by defining or categorizing traditional settlement as a dynamic and historical places containing rich, tangible and intangible values. Okay, so such settlement need to retain as a physical characters of our past time, and they had also to adapt to remain relevant in a contemporary society. According to Orbasley, only in the second half of 20th century, there were a growing appreciation of a traditional settlement as part of our heritage. In previous, the traditional settlement is only looking at the physical aspect, not on the community itself. So, UNESCO Convention concerning the protection of the world cultural and natural heritage, which was inscribed in 1972, has made a direct reference to the life of the community. Previously, it was only looking at the physical aspect. In this regard, Article 5 suggested that each state party that signed up to this convention should adopt a general policy which aimed to give the cultural and natural heritage a function in the life. Okay, and in this regard, Malaysia has deposited her ratification on this convention on 7 December 1988. Okay, we move on to the application of the incentive program in this heritage area. How this incentive program works. Okay, as you may know that after year 2008, there are numerous incentive programs that have been created by the state government in order to safeguard the cultural heritage of Malacca. These include financial and non-financial incentive. Okay, in this area, government has channeled about 2 million ringgit or 0.7 million US dollar allocated by the federal government as well as the Ministry of Tourism and Culture in order to standardize the roofing of more than 80 houses in this village back in year 2000. Okay, so the most significant aids that government provided to these premises or traditional houses is house renovation. So most of them are in the form of repairing the main structure, okay, walls, windows, roof, and stairs, and also the provision in terms of aesthetic efforts provided by the government, including the improvement of the pedestrian walkways, tree planting, outdoor street lamps, installation of roof lamp, landscape signages, and the arc gate, and other public utilities. That can be considered the non-financial incentive, which is in the form of infrastructure. These are the example of the beautification of the street in terms of planting a tree, okay, around the river, next to the river. And this is the installation of fence. Okay. I'd like to move on to the next slide on the concept of program evaluation and the effectiveness. Okay. This study actually concerned with the evaluation of the incentive program to safeguard the cultural heritage of that area. So what is the meaning of the program evaluation in this regard? As defined by Barker, program evaluation is a systematic investigation to determine the success of a specific program, while Scriven noted that evaluation is the process of determining the merit, worth, and the value of things, and evaluation are the product of that process. However, Triple D has noted that the mission of any program evaluation in social work, in particular, is to provide information that can be used to improve the social program. And in particular, the role of program evaluation in this research is to provide an acceptable answer about how well the program has been accomplished in its objective and whether or not it is beneficial to the community within the area. Okay. So for the methodology of this research, I'm using the case study methods, whereby the mixed method approach has been conducted with two-stage cluster sampling, and I've managed to get around 45 respondents in this research and then I'm doing the quantitative and qualitative data analysis. And this research has adapted the Bennett program evaluation methods. Okay, what are the Bennett's program evaluation method is all about? So in this study, I try to connect the 7 indicators of program evaluation, whereby I'm looking at the program participations, activities, inputs, reactions, learning, as well as actions and impacts to the local communities. So this study has resulted, and the aim of this objective is actually to address whether or not the incentive program that have been formulated for the community are found to be suitable and effective for the perspective of the residents. So as a result of this study, the total mean score value for 1 to 5 Likert scale found that the mean value was 3.52, meaning to say that the program was not that good, but it's in a moderate. Okay, under 7 elements of program evaluation, the highest was for the program participation, and the lowest was the program impacts, meaning to say the impact of the program is still not that good. Okay, I want to highlight some of the finding based on the interview with the residents. So this is some of the quotation that I get from the residents. Okay, maybe I can read some of those. Okay, one of the residents mentioned that we really miss the kampung environment that we had over the last 40 years, being the only fisherman village in the city. Back then, our village was surrounded by nature, trees and the river. Now all of the natural features have disappeared due to urbanization. The ugly big giant, which means the skyscrapers on the next of the riverbank that has been constructed, had made our life uneasy and inconvenience. It has really spoiled the scenery of our kampong which was really pleasant before urbanization came. As you can see in these photos, the left-hand side was the photos taken in year 2014, where I conducted my survey in 2014. On the right-hand side was the skyscrapers has been constructed. Okay, this is in year 2014. The building was constructed just next to the river bank of the village. And this is the scenery that you can see now in this village, where it is two contrasts between traditional and modern architectural. Okay? Okay. I'd like to point out some of the quotation from the residents. Okay? The government has undertaken conservation measures since year 2000 in order to preserve the traditional houses. Initially, many of the houses have been repaired and the new roof were installed with the help of the government. But however, there are issues in terms of how they manage the money, and it is actually centrally controlled by the government. And the respondent said, yet we had no say in it, and after 14 years have passed, why now there are no proactive action taken by the government to maintain their traditional houses? And also in terms of issues of low quality, okay, which I can read, the materials that they used were a low of quality. Some of the timber planks used were recycled and had been used before. They just fitted them for the sake of the repair. Even the floor, the plank they used were not planned and not smooth. I have to cover them up with mats. And also issues in terms of the appointed contractors, which for them, they have a very poor quality of workmanship when it comes into the repayment or conservation of the houses. For instance, after they had finished the renovation, we again faced other problems such as some roofs were leaking, there were gaps between the timber walls arrangement, things like that. Okay? And these are examples of the poor workmanship from the contractors, whereby, as you can see, the arrangement of the timber has a gap between wood plank, and also the windows cannot be closed accordingly. Okay, this is the image of that village. Okay, as a conclusion, this study provides the evidence on the importance of evaluation approach in measuring the effectiveness of an incentive program. In this regard, the Heritage Incentive Program. So the current funding has substantially helped our understanding to the concept of incentive and the key ingredients to promote the sustainable communities principle by understanding the real needs of the communities. We need to know the needs of the community, not the policymaker. Further investigation into this area seems to be necessary in order to offer a more sound and rounded guide for effective incentive policy. And lastly, despite the increasing focus on incentive provision in conservation strategy, and investigation into whether this incentive policy actually works remains in part as an open question. With that, thank you.
In the interest of time, could we only have 2 short questions?
Assalamualaikum. I would rather just like to give a comment rather than a question. Yesterday we heard from Professor Farooq about the dying or the most of the villages in Penang or kampungs in Penang has gone pupus, meaning there's no more kampung, but at least in Malacca there is this Kampung Mizan still remain. But with the modernity and with the development, we have to pay a certain kind of price, and that is the price, what you have described. The price is, you have to pay that. But it is a good lesson for the future in the process of getting Kampung Mizan up and running. So, which means that there is a need for a balancing act to make sure that we, when we do preservation, we will take this example from Kampung Mizan as a lesson learned. Thank you.
Yes, really agree. Yeah.
Support from the government, you know. So compared to your Kampung Mizan, you know, how do you see the difference in order to upkeep, you know, the heritage? Thank you.
Okay, my study is actually looking at the heritage village, whereby in the first phase of my study, I try to look into the heritage village of Malacca, okay, which consists Portuguese village, Chiti village for Indian community, and also Motan village. Okay, due to some reason, my study cannot include the Portuguese village because it was not gazetted as a heritage village, like in Motan village. Yeah, I agree that Malacca Motan village has been given many many beneficial in terms of policy of conservation, but in Portuguese village, very less. This is simply because the settlements is a resettlement area, and it is not, how should I say, highly architectural values. The form of houses in the Portuguese village are just ordinary building. So I asked the presim officer, which is the Perbadanan Museum Malacca. He says that there are no architectural significance for the Portuguese village. So that's why the community can be said, marginalized in this regards.
Thank you very much, Dr. Indra Shahrul Mat Razwan, for the presentation. Our presenter for the next session is Dr. Mahazan Abdul Muttalib, who is a senior lecturer at the Faculty of Leadership and Management in Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia, USIM, and currently he is also the Deputy Dean of Academic and Research. He has published and presented several articles. His latest book is entitled Leadership Development Model for Religious Leaders, Answering Issues and Challenges of Most Organizations in Malaysia, published by the Institute of Islamic Understanding Malaysia, ICKM. Please welcome Dr. Mahazan Abdul Muttalib to deliver the presentation entitled Leadership and Mosque Performance in Rural and Urban Areas of Peninsular Malaysia on the stage.
Baik, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good morning. Yeah, it is not anymore morning. We cannot identify morning and afternoon already when we are here. I think I need to greet everyone because normally when we organize conference, I'm the only one who's going to help Professor Zul to moderate everything, but today we pass the responsibility to our academic, to our assistants, Alhamdulillah, they are doing well. Congratulations. Thank you very much for helping us. So hope you are having a very nice experience coming to USIM, and please do come again, because we are planning to have this conference at least twice a year. Twice a year. Twice a year. We need to do that. And my plan, inshallah, will talk to Tan Sri Zul. Perhaps next conference we are not going to organize it indoor again. We must do outdoor. If you are outside, I can bring you outside to Sepang. It is so chaotic out there due to one main reason, which is water supply, river, to the Semenyih Dam, a very big dam, for at least 1/3 of Selangor is now polluted. Yeah, here in Negeri Sembilan, it's just few kilometers away from Selangor, and my house there, we don't have any water supply anymore for at least 2 days. So if it continues until tomorrow, you can find me and my family having shower at Petronas station, or maybe at Tasizol's house. It's cool tomorrow, so I cannot. Same with the Deputy Vice Chancellor, he's going back now because you need to manage all this. Due to one reason, which is the quality of river. So it is a very big issue. Perhaps we need to discuss it next on how to maintain this. And it is not like a very rare problem now. It's quite frequent, happens to people who are living here in Selangor. Negeri Sembilan, Alhamdulillah, I live in Negeri Sembilan last 2 months. I just moved to Selangor in these 2 months. I think I've made I don't know whether it is right decision or not. I never had this experience in Negeri Sembilan since the last 2 years. But since the last 2 months in Selangor, I'm having the problem at least 3 times already. Okay, after all, I'm here to discuss about this research that being conducted with my supervisor when I did my PhD in Osman Yop Abdullah Graduate School of Management, Universiti Utara Malaysia since the last 2009. We concluded our first data collection in 2012 by publishing a book with ICKM, Institute Kefahaman Islam Malaysia, for accusing to study how far the state of inner quality of imam could finally produce their consistent leadership behavior, just to study that part. But in this session, in this second research, we try to extend the model by studying how far the inner quality of imam finally help them to consistently behave as a good leader and give some outputs to the mosque. And we try to measure it up to the level of community development. When we compare between 2 groups of mosques, which is number 1, the urban mosque, and number 2, the rural mosque. Let me give some outlines or some background of the research. This study investigated the association of imams' religious behavior. Imam, as we know, is like a leader. Imam, basically a leader. Yeah. Historically speaking, and for some states, due to some political and theological understanding. But in Malaysia, particularly, imam is only seen as religious mosque leaders. But due to some reasons, due to the traditions that we know about imams and the needs, and people keep fighting that imams should be given with greater responsibility, and they should be responsible to observe the quality of people around them. This is reasonable if you refer to the number of mosque institutions in Malaysia. If you are sensitive enough to the Muslim community in Malaysia, for example, in Peninsular Malaysia, if you drive from one village to another, there must be a mosque. And the mosque will be led by an imam. And there is like a politic there. We need to solve this problem. We need to solve this problem because if you refer to the traditions of Muslims, everything starts from there, even our independence. And we need to revitalize the quality, the energy of mosque institution in order to lead the community. I do not know why and how, I do not know how. And from this research, we are trying to look it from the perspective of leaders themselves, or those imams. So there are some variables as investigated in this research, which is number one, imams' religiosity behavior, their leadership behavior, their motivation to lead, and their mosque performance of both rural and urban mosques in 3 states of Peninsular Malaysia, or KL, Kuala Lumpur, or Federal Territory of Kuala Lumpur, Selangor, and Negeri Sembilan. It is from the demographic, from the background of the 3 states, easily if you can divide the 3 states into two categories, mosques of urban mosques and also rural mosques. Rural mosques. And why here, if we publish a book already on this. It is in Malay. The one that we give complimentary to all presenters in Malay, entitled Masjid dan Komuniti Bandar dan Luar Bandar di Malaysia. The first book we published was in English. Leadership behavior model for religious leaders in Malaysia. But unfortunately, nobody buy the book. And well, I learned something. That's my first book. You know, learning is a process. I need to be humble on that. Everybody need to be humble on that. But alhamdulillah, we received a response from ICKM. They suggested me to publish it in Malay, because many people come, hold the book, try to read, and finally put back. And now for the second book, I'm so motivated to publish it in Malay. I think alhamdulillah, we have done. And there are some data that we need to share, but we only share one small part of the data first. Now we are going to publish the book in Malay just because of one reason, that the data need to be shared with the community, which is the Malay Muslim. And it is very important to understand that why mosque quality need always to be observed, because based on the research conducted all around the globe, not just in this country, in Amsterdam, in Germany, in America, mosque attendance is always associated with the state of religiosity among the people. Mosque attendance has always been associated with the state of religiosity in many Muslim communities, and researchers have consistently found that attachment to mosque has caused positive effect to well-being of individuals and community. This should be the premise. This must be the premise, where when we observe, the more people come to religious institutions, the more peace that we can find in the community. Not to say about Islam only, but also to other religions. If something happens against the theory, then they must be wrong somewhere. That we need to go back inside the institution, see, try to investigate what happens inside there. So this need to be always observed and investigated from the background perspective of mosque as a religious center. It is also important to identify the more suitable ways of how mosque could function as a center of multiple knowledge dissemination to answer the basic function of mosque as an Islamic religious center. This is based on an argument by Al-Atas, saying that in Islamic tradition, mosque is not a place where we go to do our ritual activities. It is a place of knowledge dissemination, and this need to be investigated. A good writing that elaborates the necessity of mosque to incorporate both religious ritual knowledge, or in Arabic we call it ibadah, and social transaction knowledge or mu'amalat, could be found in Anderson 2011, who discusses the state of piety, well-being, and sociality of Muslims through the functions of mosque in Egyptian context. If you refer to my book, there are some other examples. And I do believe that the world now, we are in one state of agreement, which is mosque need or religious center need to do all this. Which means that the gap that have been created intentionally or unintentionally in the aspects of how these religious institutions should function in the aspect of to answer the needs of the community need to be investigated, and perhaps everybody agrees that this is supposed to be like the ultimate function of any religious institutions, including mosques. This article will present data collected from randomly selected mosques in 3 states of Peninsular Malaysia, or KL, Selangor, and Negeri Sembilan, The 3 states were selected based on the factor that this research aims to identify the different patterns of mosque performance in both rural and urban areas of Malaysia. Okay, let's review a bit. How mosque and community relates. Many of the scholars from various education, social politics, geography, and religious backgrounds have discussed the association of religion and community development. For instance, Herodotus disclosed the association of religion and society in several early civilizations. The work of Herodotus was further continued by some sociologists and anthropologists of religions until today. If you refer to, this is based on my discussion with my friend, another author of the book. From historical perspective, yes, religion is strongly attached to the community all around the globe. In Al-Quran Al-Karim and Sunnah An-Nabawiyah Al-Mutahharah, descriptions on Islamic concept of community development could clearly be found. It seems like if you refer to the Holy Book of Islam, the Quran, if you can find any evidence showing that our mosque institutions, I'm just started, it has nothing to do with the community. This is like a big problem. And I think today it is no more the responsibility of people inside the mosque. It's no more responsibility of the people inside the mosque. Everybody who's relate to the institution, especially the Muslims from different backgrounds, need to come and contribute, give opinions on how the operations there finally answer the needs of the people. Islam also sees the community development means the cooperation. I'm going to skip this. And try to finally go to the research by itself. Okay, this is about Islam and development. The understanding of development in Islam touch on the issue of community values as well as principles, and not just the physical being of the community. And throughout the conference, I found that this is very clear, that we are mostly talk about the values of that we need to revive, that we need to bring back into the community, especially if you refer to the presentation by our last presenter talking about the evidence. That's values. I'm going to also present that mosque institution in Malaysia was actually maintained through donations. The principles and values, for example, justice and balance in society, are very important to promote continuous stability and collective good and happiness among the society members. This could promote unity and understanding, which are so important to enable positive development. And measuring development merely from physical perspective are dangerous because the scenario hides the true nature of the community. This is based on Al-Atas. So imams, I talk about imams, and in this research, let's just move to the methodology that I employed in this research. We surveyed, and this is, I think, the first paper based on survey data for this conference. We distributed a set of survey instrument to 250 imams in the 3 states. It's very hard to get response from them, to be honest. When I did my PhD, I dropped almost 500-700 questionnaires, but finally I was forced by my supervisor to visit them one by one. And from plan, for those who are trying to do a research on community, you need to have some backup plan as well. Firstly, I plan to do like survey study, and finally I become, perhaps I need to do qualitative research in order to get the data. But I use the survey instruments as a guide for both researcher and also the respondents. I help them, and some of them respond. It depends on the age. If they are more than 50 years old, no more. It is impossible that you are going to get survey data from them. So this is, but for this research, because it is less risky. My first research, it was so risky. If I don't get my data, then I don't get my PhD. If I don't get my PhD, I'm not here. Well, alhamdulillah, this is less risky. Let's try to ask them to answer by themselves. Then we distributed these 111 survey items to 35, and also 35 demographic questions to 250 imams. and 58 of them responded. And I love this data so much. So I got a set of data that they do not know who I am. They just answer it, put in the envelope, and send back to me. Every time I got the data, I feel like, somebody answering me. Like my prayer has been answered by the people. They responded, and it is 23.2%. The percentage is small, but from the statistical perspective, it is important because you avoid any kind of influence. Yeah. To the respondents. So this is what we got. I've just, you can refer to the book on the methodology part, the reliability, validity. I don't think that I need to present it here. But some of the major conclusions of findings, because we compare both rural and modern and also urban mosques. In relation to mosque performance, this research found that there is a significant difference in mosque performance, where we cover it basically we measure mosque performance through 3 dimensions, which is their assets, attendance, and also their money. Not at the financial income, the physical assets, and also attendance. But from the attendance, we found that mosques in rural and urban areas of the 3 investigated states, there are significant difference between the two categories of mosques, and nonetheless the situation is different for the other 3 variables, which are motivation, religiosity, and also leadership, the same. Which means that even though they are doing the same work, mosques, imams in the rural mosques and also urban mosques, the outcomes are different. First, I thought that this is good. Which means, like some articles saying that the da'wah or the work of Islamic dissemination knowledge in urban areas are better than the rural areas, and this is proven, but not. If you compare the data to the population, to the density of people, it is less. Which means that people, even though the number of people attending mosques regularly in the rural areas less than urban areas in terms of percentage, the influence of imams there is greater than imams here in urban mosques. So don't be misled by the number of people that you see in front of you if you visit any mosque around Klang Valley or around Negeri Sembilan Seremban or in Penang. Many people come here, or people in KL, they are so religious. Compared to the actual number of people which is under the monitoring and observation of the imams. And compared to the rural, this seems to be like a hint that the work of imam in the rural areas, there are some values. There are some values, and people attachment to the religious institution in the rural areas is still there compared to the urban areas. And level of participation of Muslims in congregational prayers is very low. This is only for the 5 main prayers, around 2 to 4%. Even though mosques in middle regions recorded to organize more activities, middle regions mean around KL, as compared to other regions in Peninsular Malaysia recorded to collect more financial donation, the result do not reflect the number of participation in congregational prayers at mosques in middle region. This is what I explained just now. Individual donation is still to be the most primal source of financial strength. You can see from the newspaper that the government has donated a lot, but finally if you go to the mosque itself, they're still relying on the people, It is, from the historical point of view, it is also the same. The finding indicates that the issue of low mosque participation must be resolved, since it could affect the financial stability of the institution. Only mosques in middle regions have more imams with first degree level. In terms of educational background, mosques in Kuala Lumpur urban areas, there are many imams or religious leaders with first degree education or diploma, but not in rural areas. And majority of the imams in Peninsular Malaysia is either working or have experience working as school educators, lecturers, and government servants. And based on the overall background data found in this research, we found inconclusive answers to the phenomenon of low participation of mosques in Peninsular Malaysia. This means that phenomenon of low participation of mosques should be investigated further by incorporating more variables, perhaps after this, for example, their style of living and so forth. And the data next time must not only come from the people inside mosque, but should also come from the community or the villagers and so forth. That's perhaps the third part of our research, and we are going to share it again, inshallah, in 1 or 2 years time. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm very happy to present to you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Mahazan. In the interest of time, could we have only 2 short questions, please?
I can hear you, I think.
Actually, it might be a little bit longer for a question. I'm teaching an ethnographic methods course, so I'm thinking a lot about what you just said. And the previous talk also showed some interesting methods, like the Likert scale. So I'm thinking about these things. And what I thought very interesting in your paper is that to avoid confounds, you didn't meet these imams. So you wrote to them anonymously, in a sense. They didn't know you. And that maintains a certain level of comparability across all of them. So that's certainly one way of going. And then the other, and that's, you know, one way to get an entree into the community that later you could go and get qualitative data from by observation in the field, say, with participant observation, that's qualitative. A lot of people start the other way around. They start with the qualitative. They go and meet an imam or whoever, you know, they might want to have an entree into the community with, and that they gather data on that basis, and then they begin to give the survey questionnaires, or if there are instruments, oral. If the people are illiterate, you can't send them a questionnaire. You have to ask them directly, and that would be in the community. So I mean, it's interesting that you bring that up. There are 2 ways you could start, with the quantitative and then to the qualitative, or qualitative. The way I do my own research in a community is I do the qualitative first, because I have to sort of get a feel for what would be the right questions to ask. In your case, you already know what the questions are, because you're talking about people who are knowledgeable in a particular area, you know, Muslim, Islam, you know. So that's mainly, I just thought that was an interesting thing. So now you're going to go to the qualitative.
I would like to respond to that. There are a series of research that were conducted by researchers on imams by using qualitative methods. You can refer to Rogers and also Professor Wall from the George Washington University. These are the 2 big series of research since the last 20 or 30 years, but focused only on 1 or 2 dominant aspects of imams. For example, imams as a mediator for any family conflict, and comparison of imams and also penghulu. They employ, of course, ethnographic methods in studying imams. But talking about the needs of the people here in Malaysia, if you refer to some comments, critics, and also articles on imams, there are so many arguments until we cannot understand what is actually happening. And I try to shed some light on this, which is, let's do a survey. Because we do know what are the qualities that we need on imams. Let's do a big mass survey, if possible, to the imams and try to set up the framework before we can move to the second level. And I think it's worth. I think the next session, if I still present my survey data, which means that I'm doing wrong thing. I need to go deeper now in the aspects of how they finally, you know, practice all the Islamic qualities inside them into a so-called effective behaviors of them as leaders. We need to document that. Thank you very much. Yes, that should be the field work,
Last question.
Doctor, I would like to just give some comment. I think the difference between urban mosques and the rural mosques is that in the urban mosque, most of those people who attend the prayers are not permanent resident in the area. You see, if you take an example of KLCC Mosque, I don't think there is any permanent resident, Muslim permanent resident around there, but the mosque is quite full most of the time. The only indicators that you can look at is to look at Salat Maghrib, Salat Isha, and Salat Asar. Salat Subuh. Because those will be the local who are actually attending. The foreign or the other people will be going back to their own dwellings. And secondly, I think the urban mosque, we don't look at the imam as a community leader per se, but in the kampungs, they are actually an authority. So that is the difference between the two. This is my personal opinion. Thank you.
I do agree. If you refer to the book, we presented data for attendance of mosque attendance subuh until Isha. And we normally regress the conclusion of our finding based on these three, Isha, Maghrib and also subuh, where normally people who are not working there will return back and we can find the dwellers there. About the leadership of imams, the difference of rural and urban mosques, I do agree. I do agree about that, but it's still under discussions. Because Malaysia is, the intention is simple. In urban mosques, if you go to KL, the imams there are government servants. Compared to the rural mosques, where those people are actually elected by the people. In some areas of Peninsular Malaysia, for example, in Negeri Sembilan, if you go to Rembau, I've talked to them, because in my first study, I found that they are a bit confused about, at least they have two imams. One elected by the people, another one appointed by the government. So all this is some political issues that we need to discuss further. And I do agree with that opinion. Thank you very much. And I think that's the two questions to me. Thank you very much. Okay. Oh yeah, another burning question. Yes. Correct. The two mosques, yeah, we did not cover specifically on two mosques. On that two mosques, we conducted survey on randomly selected mosques, and the two mosques were not, unfortunately, were not part of the research data. But yes, if it is part, I don't think that it's going to give big influence, significant influence to the overall data. And that's number one. Number two is the two mosques we locate them. It should be located as a third category, which is mosques associated to one particular association of Muslims, the Jamaat Tabligh and also Al-Arkam. We shouldn't actually confuse the category those mosques with Qaryah mosques, because mosques that we investigated are located in the category of Qaryah mosque or the villages mosque. Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, thank you again to Dr. Mahazan. Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed with the last speaker, we would like to announce that for those of you who are very, very hungry, please help yourself to the food. Lunch is running lunch. Thank you. Our last presenter for this session will talk about Desa Bandura, Melbourne. He is the senior lecturer in Dakwah and Islamic Management Program in Faculty of Leadership and Management. Dr. Khairuniza Muhammad Noor involved in so many students and community-based activities with government, private and NGOs. He is also a former principal of College Kediaman 1, one of the university students' accommodation. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Dr. Khairuniza Muhammad Noor.
Thank you very much. Bismillahilladzi la yadurru ma'asmihi syai'un fil ardi wala fis sama'i wa huwa sami'un alim. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wa sallim. Apa kabar orang kampung? Lama sudah tak berjumpa. minta-minta semuanya di dalam sihat sejahtera. Apa kabar orang kampung? Bilakah dapat berjumpa? Kirim-kirimlah berita, janganlah senyap sahaja. Orang kampung merantau jauh, mencari ilmu di kota. Orang kampung merantau jauh, mencari rezeki di kota. Asal ada kemahuan, semua jadi kenyataan. Wah, cukuplah sampai di sini. Lain kali dan cerita lain. Doa restu untuk kita, panjang umur kita berjumpa. I think that's all, so thank you very much. Is it? So this actually is a song by the late Datuk Sudirman Haji Arshad, an icon in Malaysian music industry. So ladies and gentlemen, the gist of the song is about the feeling or apprehension of family and friends in kampung towards their family members who maybe migrated to any other places, okay, maybe local or in international setting, for several reasons. So the reasons might be because of pursuing their PhD, pursuing their masters, or any other academic purposes, or for them to find a better opportunity of occupation and jobs and others, okay. And those who remain in kampung will always pray for the success of those travelers or migrants, and always waiting for them to come back to kampung and share all the experience they sought at the place they were migrated. So, Assalamualaikum again, ladies and gentlemen. Very good afternoon, okay. And inshallah, my presentation will be a very light presentation. That's why our MC just now said that you can have your lunch while listening to my presentation, okay? Because I have another song for you while you are having your lunch, inshallah. If you say okay with you, Tan Sri, okay? Alright, so this paper is actually about my experience. Not only me, some of our friends here, Dr. Mahazan, Dr. Umi Salwa, and others. We migrated temporarily to Melbourne. We pursued our PhD in 4 or 5 years ago. So we came over with this paper just to share with you some insight of what is actually the meaning of kampung that we brought from Malaysia to Australia. And we blended it together with the local kampung society and local kampung interest there. All right. So and this article is actually an excerpt of a book that we published a couple of months ago about our experience having the kampung spirit in America, in Canada, and also in Australia. So this paper is more about Australian setting. So there's one Malay poetic poem, and if I can share it with you. Burung belatuk hinggap di pohon, pohon merendang di tepian batasan. Hidup merantau berzaman tahun, tetap tak lupa kampung halaman. So the pantun or Malay poetic form reflecting the sense of belonging of the migrants or travelers towards their kampung. No matter how far or how long they left their kampung for any purposes, they would keep intact and remember who they are and where they come from. For sure, they are from kampung. All right. So basically, the story is actually about our temporary migration to Australia between 2007 to 2010, when I myself did my PhD in one of the universities there, La Trobe University, and the university is actually located in a suburban area of Victoria named Bandura. And it is actually about 15 to 20 kilometers from the heart of Melbourne CBD. So apart from La Trobe University, RMIT University is another higher education institutions located in Bandura. And since long, Malaysian students are enrolled in both universities and live either in the campus accommodations or they find themselves their accommodation adjacent to the universities they are studying. Okay, and some of the suburbans like Macleod, Reservoir, Kingsbury, Preston, and so forth. There are a lot of Malaysians who live here. And they live in with the local people, with their local cultures and whatsoever. And if I can share with you some of the scenes, okay, that we have there in Bandura, okay. We have trams there, a special public transport all over Melbourne and including Bandura. And I need to tell you that Bandura is like the other places in Melbourne, has its own unique and interesting community places such as parks, okay, green neighborhoods, trams and whatsoever. So this unique community environment reflects the kampung lifestyle, and where everybody share their tranquility and serenity of being so-called orang kampung or local villages. So when I went there with my first wife, when I went there with my wife and my daughter in February 2007, I'm sorry, it's a slip tongue, tak datang ikhlas dari hati, bohong aja. Okay, when I went there in February 2007, there were not so many of us, the Malaysian students and migrants who live there in Bandura. I can say around 3 to 4 families. And maybe some of the bachelor students who take who did their bachelor there. All right. So we don't have any meetings, we don't have any gathering, and we seldom meet each other because everybody seems to be comfortable to work in silo, to live in silo. Okay. Some of us they told me, abang akak, buat apa mak ayah hantar sini jauh-jauh sebab nak suruh kami rasa hidup luar negara. Brother Nizam, my father, my parents sent me here because they want us to mix with foreign cultures, not with Malaysians. So this is actually one of the mindsetting there, especially among the youngsters who temporarily migrated from Malaysia to foreign countries. So from time to time, when the number of our members is growing and growing, we think that there's a need of having an informal group platform, at least, for us, the Malaysian migrants in Bandura, in order to cater the basic needs of us here, especially the newcomers. Hence, with the capacity of 11 to 12 families and around 20 to 30 bachelor students, Malaysian students, we sat down and established our group of Malaysia temporary migrants in Bandura under a group called Desa Bandura. Okay. So the name Desa Bandura has been inspired by one of the members. I really want to share her name, Dr. Emma Izzati Zulkifli, one of the lecturers in USM. And since then, the name has been called out in emails and activities which connect the Malaysian students and residents who live in Bandura. We believe that the name Desa has a special meaning, has its special connotation to the heart of every student who lives in Bandura. And Desa, similar name with Kampung and village, feels more homely, right? Though it bears the same meaning with Kampung, with village whatsoever. So Desa brings out the picture of peacefulness, laughter, and strong ukhuwah and relationship between all of us, the members of Desa Bandura. So these are some of the photos that I can share with you. This is apple picking activity. Okay, we went there. We are not only go there without nothing. Kami bawa tu apa nama dia, sambal rojak makbi tu. Jadi pergi sana bawa pisau, potong-potong-potong, cicah sambal rojak makbi, makan kat situ. Mana ada Mak Saleh makan macam tu? So kami buat benda tak senonoh kat situ. Okay. So what I want to share with you, some of the main thing here about the community system that we developed in Desa Bandura. Number one, the system of penghulu. Same goes to kampung, same goes to local village in Malaysia, we have penghulu. A leader appointed based on maybe there in Desa Bandura, the seniority in their migration, or religious background, or senior member in terms of age. So he or she is the representative of the community, where he or she is the moderator between us in Desa Bandura and also those in Malaysia Hall, local authorities and other Malay villages in Melbourne. Number two, what I want to share with you about the community system in Desa Bandura, we also appointed imam. Just now, Dr. Mahazan shared with us. Sorry, Dr. Mahazan. This is really a slip tongue. Just now, Dr. Mahazan shared with us the conception and outcome of imam. We also know the importance of having imam or imams there, because this figure will help us in terms of the religious businesses. So, imam will handle a lot of things. If not handling, they will leading a lot of religious activities, usrah, okay, Eid celebration activities and whatsoever. Number three, we call gang sukan, or sports activity initiators. Those are actually the playmakers. They initiate things that can what? Oh, sorry. Okay, so Geng Sukan is actually the initiators for our sports activities and whatsoever. Number four, we have Usrah Wanita, a group of female members who gathered once or twice a month to recite Al-Quran or Yasin or having Usrah or religious discourse. And number five, we have those two universities in Bandura. So we have La Trobe University and RMIT students representatives who cater the needs of academic problems and whatsoever among the students who are studying in both universities. And activities in Desa Bandura, like Australians, we love barbecue, okay? Food and food and food, grill and grill and grill. And then activities in Bandura, among others, are sports. We have team competed in several state-level futsal tournaments, Malaysian Students Association in Bandura, and also Australia. Number three, for sure, religious activities. Number four, this is the one that I want to share with you the most. For newcomers, we call it as newcomers AIDS. We don't want them to get AIDS, but we are aiding them in terms of getting themselves familiarized, okay, with the Melbourne setting. So from the very beginning of their migration to Australia, we have a pickup team where we pick up those newcomers from airport to a transit house, okay? And then we help those newcomers to find houses, to find a house for them to rent. We help them, we assist them to register themselves with the university. We help them, we assist them to find any medical needs, okay, around Bandura. And also we help them in terms of getting their emotions, not apa orang panggil homesick. They are not having any homesick because they have me. They have us in Bandura. And then welfare, we also cater the needs of welfare, educational assist, physiological and so on. And we also have academic programs for parents, kids and members. All right. And ladies and gentlemen, apart from having a program among us, we also try to assimilate ourselves with local people. So that's why we also enjoy our programs with local peoples in terms of sports activities, community services, local welfare programs. We went to a lot of old folks' home actually. And then we have social programs like playing didgeridoo. So by the way, ladies and gentlemen, here, this is not anything. This is called as didgeridoo. Okay? Boleh katok kepala orang satu lah. Number dua, this is an instrument. Okay? A local indigenous instrument been played since 1,500 years ago, okay, in Australia. only in Australia. I don't know in New Zealand you have this, no? Okay. So same goes to kangaroo. They also have didgeridoo. Okay. So and the land is greener there, I suppose. So didgeridoo is something alien to us, Malaysian. Okay. But some of us, they take the opportunity to blend with the local people. They play didgeridoo. Okay. The sound of didgeridoo is like a trumpet. It's not saxophone wise, but it's like a trumpet. You need to play with your tongue out like this, but using this. Okay? But that's not the real sound. The real sound is better. Anybody who wants to play with this, tafaddal. Alright, so these social activities, apart from didgeridoo, we also have some cultural activities with local people that came from Turkey, that came from Greece, okay, and others. And then we also promote Malaysian colorful culture with local people. Alright, so now I just want to share with you some of the moments we have there. So this is programs. These are some of the programs we did with local people there in Melbourne. Kita ajar dia main getah ni, tahu kan, 0 point ni kan. Mak Saleh tu terkontang-kanting main, kita terror main, Datin Sapora. Alright. Next is we promote our food. We know that our food in Malaysia is so hot, so kita chili mulut Mak Saleh ni, gitulah cerita dia. So next is barbecue. Okay, we love having barbecue. Okay. And these are some of us, the early members of Desa Bandura. Alright. And that's me. The one with what we call as, apa tu Dr. Kamaluddin, nama dia tu? Saya lupa nama dia yang atas kepala tu. Bukan kopiah. It's a Javanese, Blancon. Blancon. Only Javanese can wear that. Other than that, you will have headache. Okay? Just kidding. Alright. Just kidding. Alright. And then we have Iftar, Jama'i and Moreh. A special eating session after we perform our Salat Tarawih in Ramadan. And then this is Malaysian students dinner where we have our cultural expo and whatsoever, Hari Raya celebration, Usrah family gathering. Okay, we are far away from our original family, so there we have another kind of family. We also have our Usrah in the park. We have family activities, okay, and we also go skiing, okay, together with all the local Malays there. We have bowling, we have futsal, and we have apple picking. We also have our korban session there, okay. We bought 3 or 4 cows, then we have our Hari Raya korban. We slaughtered the cows ourselves there, but in a closed place. We cannot be open, otherwise the local authorities will catch us and put us in jail. And then we have parenting skill programs. We are not forgetting our kids, okay. We want them to be together with us under the name, under the roof of Desa or Kampung Bandura, right? So these are the members of Desa Bandura in 2009. Now in 2012, the number seems like the same, because this is only a temporary migration. You need to know that the members is actually come and go, all right? And then in 2013, the numbers is actually increasing there. And 2015, we only have a smaller number compared to the previous years, okay? And the challenges I need to share with you. We are temporarily here in Bandura, so we cannot make sure that we are having our good time with our friends in Bandura. So what we did was, we have the alumni of Desa Bandura here in Malaysia, just to have a gathering, to have a barbecue and whatsoever. Number 2, not everybody wants to live under the same roof. No. Some of us, they like to be individualistic. Some of us, they like to be introvert. They don't want to be among others in any activity. So that's it. And number 3, the hardship to get participations from young Malaysians. No. They go there because of the reason that I shared with you just now. My father sent me here because I need to assimilate myself with Australian culture, not Malaysian culture. See? And the last one is law and regulations that restricted the movement of our formal activities. What happened when we were there, when Dr. Umi and I were there, Alhamdulillah, we managed to get the attention of the local authority to register ourselves as one of the common community, apart from the Australian community, indigenous community, the Greek, okay, the maybe Albanian. We have Malaysian community there, which formalized under the municipal there in Bandura, Alhamdulillah. And I think to wrap up my presentation, I need to share with you two pantun. Okay, merantau jauh beribu batu, bermusafir mengejar impian yang jitu, menggalas amanah, membina ilmu, menimba ilmu demi natijah agama, negara dan bangsaku. Tidak terasing di negara orang, iman dijaga, wasatiyah dijulang, syiar Islam meluas berkembang, pengalaman untuk kehidupan mendatang. So I need to tell you that the rich value of kampung here in Malaysia is actually experienced there in Desa Bandura, Melbourne, Australia. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So I think the organizer didn't permit us to have any Q&A, Alhamdulillah. So I would like to ask everybody to enjoy your lunch now. Thank you very much. Oh, you have one question. Okay, sorry. Sorry, Professor. Yeah.
But I'd like to make a commentary about Malaysian students in New Zealand.
Yeah.
In New Zealand, I am the sort of honorary education advisor to the Malaysian High Commission in Wellington, where a lot of our Malay students study, mostly on scholarship. And I'm very frustrated at times with attitudes of our Malay students overseas, because although you have found an association of desa, you know, but to me, a lot of the students basically live in a kampung environment. Kampung here, I'm referring to with a narrow outlook when they are overseas. So as an advisor, I keep telling them that you come overseas, you should get the best use of international education. Go out there and get exposed to all kinds of ideas, all kinds of information, and not live in a cocoon where they only mix among themselves. Their own celebrations, speak Malay and things like that. They're not improving very much. So I tell them, if you are going to behave like this, go back. You save money. The government will save money teaching you at home than bringing you here. You're not getting the best exposure. So my point, as I was president of Malaysian Association also for some time. My point is to instigate them to get more involved in the local activities New Zealand activities, enjoy the New Zealand culture and way of life, and not live as Malaysian with a Malaysian community in an international environment.
Yeah.
Are there some students over there like that? We have a problem in New Zealand in some cases. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. Same goes to Australian setting. Yeah, we found that there are some of us who live in cocoon, like what you told us just now. But in Desa Bandura, we try to initiate programs with locals. Some of us join several community service activities, such as in hospitals, with the local municipals. And we also ask a lot of local people to come and join our programs in order to assimilate ourselves. Not only improving language, but also improving the way of thinking. They are not thinking that, they are not having the same local thinking here to be brought anywhere. But they need to take what is good, bawa balik, what is bad, just leave it there. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Prof. Yeah. So with that, I want to have my lunch also. So thank you very much, everybody. We need to know that before I leave, we need to remember that once Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet Muhammad, told us that man arada dunya fa'alaihi bil ilm wa man arada al akhirah fa'alaihi bil ilm wa man arada alaihuma fa'alaihi bil ilm. What is the meaning of that? Sesiapa nakkan kejayaan di dunia mestilah berilmu, kata Rasulullah. Sesiapa nakkan kejayaan di akhirat mestilah berilmu. Dan Rasulullah tekankan satu kali lagi, siapa nak berjaya dunia dan akhirat sekaligus mestilah berilmu. Anybody who wants to have success in this dunya, you must have knowledge. Who wants to have success in the life hereafter, you must have knowledge. And who wants to have both success, you must have knowledge. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Dr. Khairul Nizam.